How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and I want to talk about internal networking in corrections. You know, the collective mission, you know, and how we all take part of that collective mission, civilian, custody, administrative. And I want to talk also about having a voice and making sure that we go beyond the whispers for change, that we're actually in areas where we can voice our concerns and look for change that is rather balanced. So when I come back from our sponsors, I want to talk about networking and correctional growth. And guys, if you haven't, the show is for you brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. I stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsors. You know, I've talked about networking internally, you know, basically understanding each person's perspective inside the department, just knowing that we're together, working that collective mission, and that we all have to work together as one. And if we do have an issue with someone and it tends to be personal, hopefully we don't make that as if it's a departmental issue, which means that if one person from custody has an issue with, let's say, one person from education, all of a sudden it becomes generalized animosity between two departments. We don't want that. Inmates will take advantage of that and manipulate that divide to their best interest. So I always got to remind people that it's very important that we stick together as one, communicate as one, and if we have issues, we try our best to resolve those issues. But the one thing we cannot do is generalize those issues outside of, let's say, there being a personal conflict. You know, sometimes we don't have to get along with each other behind the wall, but we have to be professional. I'm not looking to hang out with you, I'm just looking to do a job. So let's make sure this works behind the wall. And the inmates should not know of any of that personality conflict. And as I said, right now there's the animosity between civilian and custody and administration. It's defeating our purpose in regards to growth. You know, how it's amazing how powerful we could be if we all work together as one. But in order for us to grow externally, we need to grow internally. People need to see us running as a complete machine. And I know right now we have that divide. We need to find a way to overcome that divide. We really do. And I think ultimately that would be good for upper management, because when they facilitate, you're going to see the departments working together as opposed to isolation. And the way we do that is by understanding each other's perspective. We need to do that. I need to understand where you're coming from. You need to understand where I'm coming from. And then we can move forward from really good perspective. It's a combined perspective that works for the betterment of the facility as opposed for the betterment of that one department, that myopic vision that can actually destroy a facility. As you start to move up, you start seeing things more eclectic, if you will. You know, the bigger vision. You start seeing the different parts and then how those parts collectively work together as one. So again, communication, networking amongst ourselves, very important. Get to know the people that you work with. On another note, I want to talk about a voice. You know, corrections is in need of balance change. And I'm going to say balance change because there is change that's happening. It just seems to be unbalanced. And it may seem to be unbalanced because a lot of people from the front line don't feel that they're a part of that change. They see these changes that are happening that they feel are making them vulnerable, and they feel that they are not a part of the changes that are occurring, and therefore build some form of resistance because they feel isolated from that change. So there are venues in which we can have a voice, by joining organizations that kind of talk for the masses. So it's an invite for management and frontline to sit together and really discuss their concerns. But I have advice that I want to give out to those who look to host these gatherings, to host these venues, to host these conferences. You can tell when there's a divide when you're doing a course. And I like to make sure, so it's just an example, that I believe courses should be interactive. I believe in the communication that happens when you're instructing. I don't mind going outside the PowerPoint. If I have a PowerPoint, it's PowerPoint I put together, it's knowledge that I have, so I'm okay with questions. I like to hear people's thoughts and comment. But I really am dependent on interactivity. I like the communication, the dialogue in classes because we give a chance to grow, plus I get to learn. What we don't want to do is have an environment in which we don't promote that interactivity, where we don't promote that dialogue, where people are afraid to speak their mind because in attendance are higher ups. There has to be a way where when we have an event, outside of respecting the ranks of each individual, there is a way for people to know that it's okay to communicate here, that's what these events are for. So that starts departmentally or with the agency saying, hey, I know you're going to this event, so our higher level management there, but it's okay, it's an event so we can learn and work with each other. So please, if you have concerns, let's bring it up, let's talk about it. And again, you could safely bring them up generally. You may not want to be specific with the concerns, and I respect that, but you could be general with the concerns. The one thing you don't want is for when the class to complete, after you're trying as an instructor to promote dialogue, then when the class completes and everybody leaves the room, the front line comes back and starts talking about the class being good and, these are the things that they wanted to say. Because the problem is, those are the things that we want to encourage to be said in the classroom, because that's when we have all the ears there and attendance that can actually make change, the ones that we want to listen. So one thing from the agency is I would expect the agency, again, if you're going to have people coming to these trainings, to these conferences, let them speak. Again, they can speak in generalities, but they shouldn't be afraid to voice their concerns. And also, as an organization that you join, for the organization hosting the venue, you have to encourage that dialogue. You have to. And sometimes, outside of the respect, if we're bending backwards for upper management to show up and kind of going out of our way to focus a lot of attention on them, that may indirectly provide conflict to front line who may want to speak, because it may look to be that the venue is not balanced, and that front line may be saying, well, I'm not going to speak because if I do, I'm going to get in trouble. So there's two parts here to help us go beyond that whisper. One thing, it would be from the agency itself to allow the people, when they come to these conferences, to interact, have that dialogue. And again, dialogue could be general, that's fine, but to have that dialogue, to have those questions answered, and not to be afraid to ask the questions. And the organization should do what it can to support that, so we can have both sides at the table really learning from each other instead of really doing this in isolation. Time for those questions to be asked are in the classroom, not after the class is over at the table. Because again, it's going to require dialogue, and that dialogue is going to require a perspective from both sides, and ultimately from the perspective of an understanding of both.
There are crashes on Connecticut 15 South before the EEC or the First Sikorsky Memorial Bridge that are causing a delay. You can avoid them by going via I-95 South, which saves 3 minutes. If you prefer to stay on the current route, tap no thanks.
Alright guys, looks like I gotta tap a button, but real quick, the show is Tier Talk, guys. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, hit that bell. That bell's gonna notify you every time I post up a video. And guys, as I'm saying, we gotta have organizations that are welcoming to both parties, and it has to be an equal welcome. If the equal welcome is not there, one party is gonna feel isolated, and one party is going to not feel that they have the freedom to speak their concerns. And again, we're talking about generalized concerns that is still worthy of a constructive dialogue, and that dialogue can be used to understand both perspectives, the perspective of management and the perspective from frontline, which it's sad to say this understanding should come from within the facility that you work at, but in some cases it may not, so we should provide the venue, or we should be able to have organizations that help us with that understanding and then provide the ground that's needed so we can encourage that type of dialogue. As always, guys, love you guys. Stay safe.